All right, guys. So obviously some gigantic news out of Syria that we have to get to here, as over the last couple of weeks or so, the Bashar al-Assad government has effectively completely disintegrated at this point. In fact, he is no longer, according to reports, even in Syria anymore, and fled to Moscow in Russia a couple of days ago. So a lot of different layers to this story that I'm sure I'm not going to be able to pack into one video. Obviously, you have the history of the last decade plus of a brutal war that led to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people, displacement of millions more. You have the regional actors that were involved in this. You have the global actors like the United States and Russia that were involved in this. We also have some wild videos that have been emerging over the last couple of days of both statues that are being toppled inside of Syria, as well as people being freed from some of the brutal prisons inside of Syria as well. And then, of course, we have the Israel angle to all of this because, no surprise, they are using this as an opportunity for what seems to be a potential land grab. So let's just go ahead and get into some of the basics here and we'll work our way through. They start off here from CBS News saying that Syria's long-running civil war came to a head on Sunday when opposition forces entered the capital city of Damascus and the government of President Bashar al-Assad collapsed. Russian state media later reported again that Assad and his family had reportedly fled to Moscow. They say that the Syrian prime minister, this guy Mohammed Ghazi Jalali, said early Sunday that he would remain in Damascus and the government was ready to extend its hand to the opposition and hand over its functions to a transitional government, according to the Associated Press. So a little bit of background here. They say that the war in Syria began in 2011 when there was an uprising calling for the end of Assad's long reign, and it escalated quickly into a civil war. And since then, this conflict has claimed more than 500,000 lives and displaced some 12 million people from their homes across the country. So obviously some unimaginable levels of death and destruction that the people of Syria have been facing over the last decade plus. They continue here with some more information on the rebel group that helped to lead this very quick offensive that led to the toppling of Assad. They say in late November, rebel forces in the northwest launched a shock offensive led largely by the militant group Hayat Tahrir al-Shams, also known as HTS. Now, this group has tried for a number of years to publicly distance itself from the jihadist roots as a regional branch of Al-Qaeda. With other conflicts currently occupying Assad's backers of Iran, Russia, and Hezbollah, the rebel forces are believed to have seen an opportunity to renew their fighting against his army. Now, a little bit more on that HTS Al-Qaeda connection here, because the leader of HTS, its figurehead, this guy, Mohammed al-Jalani, he has been previously listed by the United States of America, as well as plenty of other countries as well, as a terrorist. In fact, there was a bounty of $10 million that was on this guy's head, right? And you can go and look at previous statements from, top political figures. I think there was some by John Kerry that you could go and look up. There were some other ones, I believe, by Antony Blinken, where they describe this group as essentially indistinguishable from Al-Qaeda, right? As essentially a terrorist organization. And they had a $10 million bounty on this guy's head. Now, there's been lots of work that has been done in the U.S. media by some U.S. political figures to sort of rehabilitate his reputation, to say that he's changed, he's moderated, and whatever else the case may be. I guess a lot of that is yet to be seen, right? Obviously, he's going to be incredibly influential in Syria moving forward one way or another. But, just an interesting phenomenon here where the U.S. is now, at least according here to Middle East Eye, and I've also seen reporting on this, the same thing applies to the United Kingdom as well, who also had him designated as a terrorist and the HTS designated as a terrorist organization. But they're now having conversations of removing the $10 million bounty on this guy here. This is a picture of him giving a speech at a mosque, I believe in Damascus, after the rebel forces were successful in their offensive against Assad and forced him out. So I guess my top line takeaway from all of this, as we look at some of these videos that I was teeing up here of some of these statues of Assad and his father being taken down, my top line takeaway from this is that it's scary, and at the same time, I want to recognize Syrian people who feel as though they have suffered under 50 plus years of the Assad family's brutal, tyrannical, whatever term you want to use to describe it, regime, and are now feeling somewhat of a sense of relief that maybe there's something hopeful to look forward to in the future. Now, again, there are multiple layers to this, and I would be skeptical to just give into this idea of, well, this is purely a time for joy and celebration and everything, because, not only does HTS and some other factions inside of Syria, not only do they have their own issues of human rights abuses and torture and, many other things as well that I'm sure we'll get into over the next couple of days and weeks. But, if you've looked at the overthrow of Saddam Hussein, if you've looked at the overthrow of Gaddafi in Libya, right, it's not always, right? In fact, I would say most of the time, when you have a prominent leader like an Assad who is overthrown, it can get pretty shaky, to say the least, right? And you could have, depending on how things go over the next couple of weeks and months here, you could have potentially a brighter future for Syria, or you could also have a pretty dark and abysmal future, right? Depending on how stabilized things get, depending on, what sort of factions are trying to vie for power, what sort of civil society they are able to produce in the next couple of weeks and months. It's a pretty stressful situation, to be honest with you, because it's not as if Bashar al-Assad was a good leader or a good man, right? I don't think either of those things are true. But, Saddam Hussein was not a good man, right? But you look at the aftermath of the toppling of Saddam, the Iraq invasion, the power vacuum that was left in its wake, and, you have some questions in terms of potentially how this is all going to shake out. And again, it's scary shit, right? Now, again, I'm sure there are many Syrian people who are celebrating this and are happy that, they've successfusly managed to oust somebody like Assad. But man, I mean, this is some wild video here that was taken as some of these prisoners were being freed from this Sednaya prison. I think this is outside of Damascus. And you can literally see people going through and opening the cells sort of one by one as people are coming out. And I believe I have another video of that here lined up as well. So here you have again people who were held in this prison complex. Now, this is insane because I've seen other reports that have been coming out that there are people who are still trapped inside of this sprawling, like labyrinth sort of style prison complex, where the rebels who took over this region were able to get access to sort of like the control room area where you can overlook the cameras that are surveilling some of these prison cells, but they don't yet even know how to get to the prison cells themselves, right? So they're freeing as many people as they can, I guess, and they're sort of working their way through, and there are families who are trying to go and see if their loved ones are amongst the people who are being released, and just an absolutely wild scene that we've been seeing over the last couple of days. Now, we also have here, again, to finish off this quick little update, and again, over the next couple of days and weeks, we're going to have to get more in depth on all of this, but we also have this angle here of Israel. So here from Al Jazeera, they say that Israel grabs land in Syria's Golan Heights and is warning villagers to stay home. They say Israeli forces also bombed weapons depots in southern Syria and in the capital of Damascus. Now, we also had Benjamin Netanyahu coming out, making a statement about this. We can go ahead and watch a little bit of this video here that he put out and come out the other side.
This is a historic day for the Middle East. The collapse of the Assad regime, the tyranny in Damascus, offers great opportunity, but also is fraught with significant dangers. This collapse is a direct result of our forceful action against Hezbollah and Iran, Assad's main supporters. It set off a chain reaction of all those who want to free themselves from this tyranny and its suppression. But it also means we have to take action against possible threats. One of them is the collapse of the Separation of Forces Agreement from 1974 between Israel and Syria. This agreement held for 50 years. Last night it collapsed. The Syrian army abandoned its positions. We gave the Israeli army the order to take over these positions to ensure that no hostile force embeds itself right next to the border of Israel. This is a temporary defensive position until a suitable arrangement is found. Equally, we send a hand of peace to all those beyond our border in Syria, to the Druze, to the Kurds, to the Christians and to the Muslims who want to live in peace with Israel. We're going to follow events very carefully. If we can establish neighborly relations and a peaceful relations with the new forces emerging in Syria.
So that's quite a an extension of a hand of peace there, right? To immediately invade, occupy, and to bomb Syria in the immediate aftermath of this. So again, you know, the justification from Israel is going to be, well, this is a defensive measure, security measure. We had no choice. So we are going to continue to push into Syria and to continue to illegally occupy, by the way, the Golan Heights that are not Israeli territory as recognized under international law, but that they have been occupying illegally for decades and decades and decades at this point. Now they're saying, no, we need to push even further than the Golan Heights to establish a buffer zone of sorts. And also, again, the U.S., I think Turkey as well, and Israel have all been bombing inside of Syria over the last couple of days. So again, I'll finish off with this. A lot of this is up in the air. We don't know what direction this is going to go. It's kind of a terrifying situation if you look at the former ousting of, long-running leaders in the region and how well that's gone. But, also Assad was not a good guy. Okay, there's no two ways about it. He was brutal. He was a tyrant. He was a dictator. And, you also have these issues with the rebel factions inside of Syria and their own human rights abuses, their own allegations of torture, their connections to al-Qaeda. And anytime that Benjamin Netanyahu seems like he's happy about something, that's also setting off a red flag for me as well. So we'll have to stay on top of this story. Major developments happening. It really does seem like over the last couple of weeks here, or even the last year or so, the news has gotten pretty fucking crazy, right? We've had a genocide in Gaza. We've had continued ethnic cleansing in the West Bank. We've had Israel invading Lebanon. We've had back and forth exchanges between Israel and Iran that we've been on the edge of our seats worrying is going to turn into a broader conflict. We've had the U.S. involved at every single stage throughout all of this. Now we have the toppling of Bashar al-Assad in Syria, and so many other things that are going on around the world at the same time. So, very scary, very interesting times. And I'll try to keep you guys as updated as I possibly can.
Politic guy has the best politics. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying